Start recording. Very good, thank you. Okay, so good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Manufacturing Works and our member partner On Technology Partners. It'll be presented by Ken Fanger, who is the president of On Technology Partners. Joining us on the call is one of his customers, Samanth Morampudi from Cleveland Public Power will be joining us. And we always encourage our presenters to bring on some of their clients so that you can have that, we can have a discussion from what's being, what's being covered and the practical application from someone who's done it and been experiencing that technology. So this is a three-part series in cybersecurity. There's a lot to cover, and so and it's at different levels. And so we broke it up into three sections. Each section we start with the fundamentals and we kind of build on it, the most common problems that you'll have, and we'll build on that. And then, of course, for those of you who have looked at the events, the last session is really geared towards suppliers of Department of Defense contractors, or if you are yourself a Department of Defense contractor, and the CMMC requirements that are required of you. And so we'll just kind of build on all that. So a couple of housekeeping things. We will be monitoring the chat box as all folks do. Whenever you have a question, fire away right away because it's topical. These webinars are for you. They're a little bit of education, and we want this to be a time for you to get answers to your questions. This is a good time to get that information. So interrupt us at any time with chat. You can also turn your camera on. You'll see that as soon as we get started with Ken and Samanth, we'll be turning our cameras off. Turning your camera on is our cue that you have a question, so we'll call on you. And lastly, if you do have, if you missed this or you have to leave a little early, we are recording it and we'll put it on our YouTube channel just a couple days after. Manufacturing Works, many of you know, we're a part of a 300 manufacturing organizations in Northeast Ohio, really representing the strength of manufacturing in our area and our local economy. We have a sponsor for all of our technology-related webinars, and that sponsor is Team Neo, and specifically the Smart Manufacturing Cluster of Northeast Ohio, of which we are ourselves a member and a very active member at that. So we very much encourage their utilization. So anyway, here to tell us a little bit more about Smart Manufacturing Cluster is Rick Earls, who is the Senior Director of Industry and Innovation at Team Neo.
So I'm filling in for Erica. I don't look like that. At any rate, she's actually much better looking than I am. But let me give you just a little bit of background on Team Neo. So Team Neo is a private nonprofit economic development organization accelerating business growth and job creation throughout the 18 counties of Northeast Ohio region. As designated Jobs Ohio network partner, we align and amplify local economic development efforts in the region's 18 counties. We conduct research and data analysis to inform local conversations and influence solutions. We market the Northeast Ohio region, and we work to increase access to jobs, education, training for the region's 4.3 million people. We do this to build a more vibrant regional economy, one that's more talented, equitable, competitive, innovative, resilient, and prosperous. Now, in my role at Team Neo, I actually spend most of my time focused on the Smart Manufacturing Cluster activities. So let me give you a little bit of background there. The Smart Manufacturing Cluster of Northeast Ohio accelerates the growth and competitiveness of Northeast Ohio economy through the implementation of smart manufacturing and innovation that leverages the region's rich manufacturing heritage, unique assets, and talented workforce. We lead the development of innovation roadmaps and serve as a platform for the region's manufacturing blueprint to accelerate adoption and maximize the value of technology. We connect knowledge, experience, tools, and networks with manufacturers to generate demand, create productivity, increase productivity and spur product innovation, and develop the talent and resources necessary to drive technology implementation and innovation. So if you have any questions at all, both about either Team Neo or the Smart Manufacturing Cluster, there's going to be a link later on in this presentation you see today. Go ahead and use that. And either one, Erica or myself, will respond to your needs.
Yeah, and I can say I've been working with Rick now. It's been probably 7 or 8 years that we've kind of known each other at Team Neo. And he's actually the one that got us started into the manufacturing sphere a few years back and introduced us to Manufacturing Works. So
yeah,
thanks.
it's a good segue. I'll also say, just to introduce you, Ken, to the folks on the webinar. That so Ken's obviously is with On Technology. He's the president of On Technology. Been in that role for 27 years. Ken's wife is the founder of the company and CEO, and they are a certified female business entity. So other than his 27 years on Technology Partners, 15 years working with Jumpstart in various capacities and as a consultant for them from their inception, and many of the companies that have gone through that pipeline. Ken's local, a Lyndhurst native, for those of you that are familiar with the area, and spent his time at Miami University getting his BS in decision science, and then went on to Michigan State to get his MBA and specializing in supply chain management. And with all that of an introduction, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ken.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I am going to go back because I know this is like really topical. Happened over on the 4th. I'm sure we've all heard about the Kaseya hack and what happened. So I was asked, do we use Kaseya? I do not use Kaseya, not that they are a bad company, but there was a hack where the Russian hackers, which is why we were talking about speaking Russian a little bit earlier, were able to put malice code into Kaseya's software, and then Kaseya's software is used to manage lots of other companies' software. So it's used by what are called MSPs, or managed service providers. They're IT companies that take care of your stuff. We use Enable, which is a competitor of theirs. And one of the nice things and one of the features that we use is we use a thing called ransomware rollback from SentinelOne. So even if you would have got infected through the attack, we could use the ransomware rollback to get your machines back into an operational state. So unfortunately, this is happening. It's happening right now. It's hit thousands of companies, and it is going to be a real increase in these cyber attacks. So I wanted to just jump back before. I also want to take a second, Sumath, if you just want to kind of introduce yourself, tell the world who you are and what you do for Cleveland Public Power. Sumath, you're muted. I don't know.
We might be having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, he had 2 connections and one just dropped, the one that had the video. He still has a phone connection though, it looks like.
Okay.
Oh, as soon as he can, Sumath, feel free to jump right in. Ken, you can continue, and then we do want Sumath to be able to discuss the topic here today with us. So thank you.
Yep, no problem. So I also wanted to mention I do have my CMMC RP. So when we do talk next Thursday about CMMC, I can bring some of that knowledge, and we are focusing on the manufacturing sector. So, okay, so the first thing I want to do, I want to kind of start this off with some fun. So what I would like you to do, if you would use your phones or an extra tablet, I found that when we try and do this with the computer, it's a little hard to see the questions and answer the questions. So what I'd like you to do is go to kahoot.it on your phone, and then I'm going to share the code right now. So if you would go ahead and go to kahoot.it, and then when you get there, type in this code, I'm going to have a series of questions. We're going to see who can answer the questions the fastest. Okay, we've got Shanti in there, and Ron. Welcome, Robert and Jimmy. Hello, Buck, Nick, Russian speaker. Shouldn't that have been in Russian? Joanne, thank you. And anyone else? Okay. Welcome, Joe. Okay, I'm going to count to 10 and then we'll get this started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, okay, well, that's fine. You can just watch the questions. They'll pop up on the screen. Okay, here we go. Here's our intro to ransomware quiz. Get excited, here it comes. First question, what percentage of security professionals think that their computers are not ready for a ransomware attack? 10%, 25%, 50%, or 100%? Now we need that Jeopardy music.
Da, 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 da.
I'm sorry, it's already started. Nobody else can join in. You'll just have to keep your own score. Okay, 50%. Excellent. Ada, you got that right. Okay, Shanti's leading us. Good job, everybody. Next question. What is the most common way to get ransomware? Weak passwords, spam email, lack of cyber training, poor user practices. Okay, spam email is the #1. Lack of cyber training and poor practices come in later, but the worst way is through your email. Okay, Joe's taking the lead. Look at that. Good job, Joe. Question #3. How often will a company be attacked by ransomware in 2021? 5 seconds, 15 seconds, 11 seconds, 30 minutes. That's right. Every 11 seconds, somebody else gets ransomware. So that's a lot. That's very often. Whoops. What percentage of financial institutions have experienced ransomware attacks? 15%, 45%, 70%, or 90%? It is 90%. So 90% of financial institutions have experienced some type of ransomware attack, which is kind of a scary thought. Okay, oh, Russian speaker. That's kind of scary. Are you part of the hackers? Okay, 5th question. What is the average cost of ransomware per incident in 2020? $2,500, $120,000, $13,300, or $8,100? It is $8,100, so that's the average. So you have these people that charge you 500 and you have people that charge millions, but that's still a pretty scary number when you look at the total that we're going to see in this next question. Okay, let's see. Shanti's moved back into the top 5. Okay. Here's the last question. What is the estimated total cost of ransomware in 2020? 20 billion, 500 million, 45 billion, or 2 billion? The answer was 20 billion. So you can see it's a large amount of money. Okay, let's see. Shanti was in third place. Good job. Russian speaker came in second. Oh, fell out of first. And Buck is in first place. Good job, Buck. Okay. So as you can see, I'm going to bounce this back over to here. It's a major problem. You see, a lot of security professionals don't think we're ready for it. And you can see that by the thousands of attacks that have just happened. It gets through on spam and email. It's happening a lot. A lot of institutions have already had to face it. And it's kind of expensive. I mean, that's an average. So that's the $500 ones and the $1 million ones. And it's totaled up to $20 billion. How many of you would love to have $20 billion in a given year? So as Ron had said, ask questions during this. This is a lot more exciting if you don't just listen to my voice drone on. And so any questions you have, any concerns you'd like to share, that would be great. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to cover. Today, we're first going to cover what is ransomware. I'm going to explain how it works on the simplest levels. I'm not going to go into enhanced encryption conversations, but I'm going to talk about some of the common attacks. How do they get to you? Then I'm going to talk about some of the ways to protect yourself as you go forward. Then I'll talk about what you can do, where you can go for help, and what actions you can take before and after to try and get yourself back to whole. And then you're going to get a quiz because, this is like school for you. So we're going to go over and make sure that you got to learn all of these great facts that we're going to teach you. And then at the end, you get to judge me, which everybody loves to judge somebody, and we'll give you a chance to win $50 if you fill it out. So we'll pay you to judge me. Okay, let's talk about what is ransomware. So ransomware is effectively where you lock somebody up and demand money to release them. But what does that mean? So when somebody says you got ransomware, what does that mean? So I like to start with this. Can you read this sentence? If somebody can read the sentence, I'm going to wait a few seconds and put into the chat what it says. That would be great. Russian works. Yes, it's Russian. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to, whoops, looks like somebody else just put in a chat. This is a something. It is definitely a something. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to translate this. So what this is where you take readable words or information and you translate it into unreadable words or information. So this is encryption. And the problem is you can unencrypt a sentence if you know what the encryption key is. In this case, it's a 10-character shift key. Very simple. A computer would solve this in about 2 seconds. But you can see where it starts, it's unreadable, but when it gets to the bottom, it's readable. So if you imagine all of your data going in the opposite direction on a really complex key, that's where the problem comes in. So it takes this wonderful day and turns it into a terrible day. And that's how they encrypt. So they put this program that goes through and searches your hard drive for files that it can turn into unreadable files. And then they say, give me $500 in Bitcoin, give me $1 million in Bitcoin, and I'll give you the key that tells you how you get it back to readable. So that's how encryption works. Are there any questions on encryption? So this, I put in here, as you can tell, a lot of recent things. So all of these things are happening in the last few weeks. $70 million to restore data. So it's been crazy. It's been a crazy month. It's bad from before, but now it's getting really bad for some reason. And I'll talk about some of those reasons here coming up. Yes.
And just a quick question. So, we've heard a lot about the attacks and all, and encrypted files. So how often, any statistics on how often, if you do pay, that you get the code so you can unlock your system and get back up and running?
Yes. There is that number. Perfect timing. So less than 25% of the companies that pay actually get their information back. So, one of the things I had a person complain to me because they couldn't get their information back. And I explained to them, these are criminals. They don't have any vested interest in being good to you. You can't count on that you're going to get it just because you send them your credit card information or you send them a bunch of Bitcoin. So yes, be very careful when you do. I'm going to talk later about the FBI. The FBI says don't pay, but that may not be an option for you. So that's why you want to take these pre-steps, because you're not guaranteed you'll ever get your information back. And so ransomware cripples your technology, locks your data, and then they hold you for ransom. That's why they call it ransomware. So remember that just because you think you pay, there's no court you can go to say, hey, they're not being fair to me. They don't have to be fair. They're holding you hostage. So let's talk about why they do it. Hackers have lots of reasons for why they do things, but in the case of ransomware, it's almost always the same reason. It is to make money. So the Russian hackers are making millions of dollars. So they're doing it because they want to make money. And you can see by the $20 billion in losses from last year, $8,100 per incident. Could you imagine if you could get thousands of customers to pay you $8,100? You wouldn't have to do it very long, would you? So this is what it has to do. They are trying to get you to give them money. So let's kind of talk about those attacks that we had said. What happens? How do they get to you? So one of the first ways they do is they send out an email. It can be something like, hey, here's a $5 Target card. And I have to admit, I actually about 7 years ago clicked on one of those bad $5 Amazon cards. I was like, oh, cool. Look, they're really appreciating me. Ended up having to rebuild my computer. Fortunately, I did have all my backups, did all the proper things, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was very frustrating. So it'll come as an email. It might come lately. They've been doing what are called whaling emails, where your boss sends you an email and says, I need you to open up this document or something. And they're spoofing the person so that you think it's coming directly from them. Another big one is a lack of cybersecurity training. People don't know how to react when they get a link. One of the big things that's happening is you'll get links that say, hey, I need you to do this for your bank account. They'll send it to the financial office. You'll click on it. It'll put a ransomware on all the financial files, and then they'll demand you to pay to get them back open. Having weak passwords. That's one of the things that is happening right now. If you use your same password, if you use it for your administrator account and you use it for your bank account and you use it for your Gmail account, if they hack into one of those, they get all of them. And if it's easy to hack, they will do it. We're going to provide at the end of this a list of links. One of them is to a password tester to see how good your password is. So it's important to check and manage that. And we'll talk about passwords later on. And then one of the last ones are just malice sites. You do a Google search, you click on something, it ends up that it's a hacker site. So you need to make sure you're careful where you're going, especially when you're in your office. And more importantly now when you're at home. I'm going to talk about that as we go forward here in a second. And here we are. This is why it's growing. So over the last year, what happened over the last year that might have increased the availability of getting at workers? Anybody want to share? Yes, COVID. So COVID drove us all home and working from home. So what happened was all those corporate firewalls and all that corporate security got removed when we ended up going home. And one of the things that you want to be careful when you're doing a work from home environment, it's called split tunneling. The person's home internet is probably faster than having all the internet go back through the office and then go back out. But when you do that, they are far more available for attack. And so you end up with a situation where they're pulling a bad thing to their computer, they're open to your network, and then they start to broadcast it into the network. That has happened, and it's one of the dangers of it. You want to make sure when you have people working from home that they're staying in your network and not doing something where they're bypassing your security. The next thing, a lot of security standards are behind. So we're not doing proper patching. We don't have a policy for patching. We don't have a training program. We don't do white hat hacking, as it's called, which is sending emails that look like spoofing emails, but instead of doing bad things to you, they train you and teach you how to not do it. So it's important to look at what have you done? Have you updated your password policies? Have you made sure that people are keeping their passwords? I was just talking to somebody today in the medical field, and they have to have a 15-character password. Well, one of the disadvantages of having a super complex password is that you can't remember it. So we'll talk here later on in this presentation about some steps to help you do that. But people are not up to speed. You're not using multi-factor authentication, which we'll also talk about as we go forward. Greater connectivity. I've actually had people that have come in and they were frustrated because they couldn't get through the firewall, so they hooked their computer up to their hotspot. Now their computer was connected to the internal network and their hotspot at the same time, and so they now became a pathway that bypassed all the outside security to let people get in and do things. So we have more connectivity now than we've ever had, and it also creates more pathways to get to your information. I remember when I was young, years ago, I went to a Cisco cybersecurity meeting, and the guy had pulled out a giant set of wire cutters and said, if you want to be safe on the internet, cut the internet. Well, unfortunately, that no longer works because somebody can walk in another way to get to the internet from your company. And sadly, as we've seen with the Revel, the attacks are working. And so every business understands if something works, keep doing it. In fact, do it more. And that's what's happening. That's why when we talk about the FBI later here, we'll talk about what they suggest in protecting yourself. So why they suggest things like you shouldn't pay. And we'll go over what to do and how to deal with it. But not paying may not be an option, but they will always tell you not to pay. So I'm going to take and kind of talk about who's been hacked. Some of these you'll have heard, some of them are local. So we had Coventry Schools. You heard about that. They got hacked. Cleveland Public Airport had gotten hacked. Colonial Pipeline. They had shut down the pipeline to the East Coast for quite a few days. It was a major disruption to the supply chain for the oil industry. JBS Foods. Oh, and I want to jump back to Coventry Schools because that was an interesting one. I want to take a minute and talk about what happened there. So Coventry Schools actually got hacked by a exposure that had been patched a year earlier. But because they had not kept up to date on the patches, it ran through the entire school. It shut down every system within the school, cost about $2 million to recover. And unfortunately, it shut down the air conditioning unit. It shut down the student records. It shut down everything. And so that's a situation where patching is so important because if they'd have been patched, the whole wouldn't have happened. The actual ransomware that hit them was actually not intended for them. It was intended for large financial institutions. It just found its way into them by accident. And that's one of the things. These hackers don't care who gets collateral damage because all they care about is can they get their money. And one of the ones that I found was the NBA had just gotten hacked. So you can see large companies are getting hacked. People are getting hacked all over the place. We all have to take time to engage and protect ourselves as much as possible. Oh, let's see, we got a chat here. So the school ended up having to rebuild all of their computers. They wiped out everything. brought in a company that rebuilt everything from scratch. It cost him, I think it was $2 million. Well, the nice thing is there are very cost-effective solutions. There's nuts. I'm just a small bolt manufacturer. So there are some really inexpensive first steps that you can take to help protect yourself from getting ransomware. And we'll talk about some of those. And again, anyone that wants to get with me afterwards, my information will be provided. But there are some steps that you can do. And then, of course, everything goes up from there as it is. But we'll talk about that and talk about some of the steps you can take. So these are the suggestions from the FBI on what you should do to protect yourself from ransomware. So one of the first ones, I told you about Coventry schools and what happened. Everything got wiped out. Make sure you keep your software up to date. Make sure you keep your systems, your applications. I was out at a cybersecurity event about 6 months ago, and I found out that there was a hole in Adobe. And this hole let them be able to send you an Adobe file. When you open the file, they could then do a remote connection as an administrator onto your computer and install any software they wanted. So you want to make sure you're keeping these patches, because there's companies out there that are constantly looking for what is open, what is available, what can be hacked. And then they go and they make sure they let people know so they can close it. But if you're not up to date, you can end up with what happened at the school. An old virus can still wipe you out. The next thing I want to talk about is make sure that your antivirus and anti-malware is up to date. It doesn't do you any good if it is 6 months out of date, because again, you're open to attacks that they didn't know about 6 months ago. So keep that up to date. I had one person who had bought McAfee, but they didn't pay for the yearly subscription. And they're like, well, I got antivirus. I looked at it. It was back in 2006. So a lot changed from 2006 till today. You want to keep all of these things up to date. And this is the next thing. Back up regularly with a ransomware resistant backup. So what that means is if you just attach a hard drive to your computer and you back up to it and you get ransomware onto your computer, it's also going to go onto that hard drive. I had a client that came to me after they got ransomware, and that's exactly what they had. They had their computer, which was the office server for 7 people, and they had a backup of it attached through a USB drive to that computer. Well, the computer got ransomware. The ransomware went out and looked for every available file, and it encrypted the hard drive as well. So they ended up with no backup because it was attached. So when you do look at backups, make sure they are ransomware resilient. The backups that we'll offer, yep, looks like Ron has a question coming up.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarity on that, if you don't mind. So
sure.
There are people that will do cloud backups, and many of them will also do a local backup, right? So they'll do maybe a backup of all their accounting systems at noon or at every other hour, whatever. But I think what you're saying is by leaving the hard drive physically attached all the time, that's where the problem is. So if the backup runs, then you disconnect the drive and you store that drive and you get your next drive out for the next backup. That's not best, but that's a better practice than leaving it always connected. Is that?
Yes. Okay. If the hard drive is, and that's their 4th recommendation down here. If the hard drive is not connected, it can't get ransomware. Okay. It can't jump over the air per se. And when you talk with cloud providers, you want to make sure that they're air gap backup Suma shared with us. So yes, that's exactly what it is. You want to keep that physical separation as much as possible. And
so you just use another term. I just want to make sure that I interpret it correctly. Air gap backup. So as a layman, I would say that means that I'm actually not always connected to the cloud either. So that connection to my cloud backup comes and goes on a scheduled basis, right?
Well, depending on the cloud backup you're using. So we use an industry standard backup. You don't have to disconnect it and reconnect it. They have versions that are backed up. So if one of your copies gets encrypted, you just move a previous version. So you don't have to, when you talk about a cloud backup, you want to make sure that they are ransomware resistant in their design. So it's a little different than the on-site backup type situation. Most of the times with the on-site, so a lot of smaller businesses just use that hard drive solution, and they don't. I recommend you have at least 3 hard drives, and 2 of them are disconnected at any time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, and somebody put into the chat, which I have on here, test your backups. I love this story that I had. I had a doctor's office that had called us in because they had gotten a ransomware attack, and they said, oh, we have our backups. They were really proud. The secretary every day went in and stuck the tape into the backup drive. I went over, I logged into the backup software, and it had not run in 2 years. But for 2 years, she popped the tape out and put it in. So the rule in backups are, tape backups are old. That was really old. But the rule is your backups are only as good as the last test of it. So if you haven't tested it in a year, you can't expect it to work. So remember that when you have backups. The backup solution we use, Datto, actually will spin up your backup and make sure that it works properly every night. Okay, let me close that down. Any questions on these suggestions from the FBI or backups? Backups really are your best defense against ransomware. So that's why I'm spending so much time kind of talking about it. And this is always important, kind of have a plan, know what you're going to do. Yes, somebody put in the chat, Microsoft does not back up Office. So you do want to have a third-party backup. We offer a third-party backup for this. That's a major issue. If you read, and I found this out, actually, I had thought Microsoft had a backup. They will try to recover your data for 30 days, but in their end user agreement, it says they have no liability or obligation to recover your data. So if you are using Microsoft, definitely we have a backup of our Microsoft environment. You're going to want a backup of your Microsoft environment. And I'll tell you an example where ransomware hit. This is with Dropbox about 5 years ago, but one of our clients had gotten a Office 365 is not a backup. Yes. So they had gotten a ransomware on one of their computers, but it was attached to Dropbox to all other 6 computers. It encrypted all of the Dropbox files. And they didn't have the enhanced Dropbox, so they didn't have the enhanced backup feature. They had to pay Dropbox $500 to restore that data. So be careful. There's a difference between cloud backup and cloud file sharing. Office 365, Dropbox, those are cloud file sharing, meaning that you're supposed to share your files, put your files up there. They're not considered a backup. So please remember that. That's important. If you do have a problem, you call Microsoft, they'll probably tell you sorry. And that's a terrible time to find out you don't have a backup. Okay, so let's talk about some of the ways you can recover from ransomware. And here it is. The very first one is backup. So you want to back up, you want to make sure that it is secure. If you're doing an on-site backup with a USB drive, make sure that you disconnect that USB drive from the computer. If you're using clusters, make sure that your backup is not directly connected to your cluster, because if the cluster becomes corrupted, and just for those who don't know what a cluster is, it's a set of servers working together as one environment. So that might be VMware for virtual machines. You might have heard that there are virtual servers out there. So you could have several machines running these virtual servers. If those machines all get corrupted at the same time, everything on them becomes corrupted. So make sure you have your backups that are ransom resistant or not physically connected after they've taken care of their backup. And again, you want a 3-2-1, which means you want to have 3 different versions of the backups, 2 different locations, at least once a day. And then another thing that you have to pre-plan this. This is one of the products that we offer and other companies offer through SentinelOne, but it's called ransomware rollback. So if you do get ransomware, it takes about 3 clicks and it can put the computer back to the state it was before the ransomware hit. We actually have a video if anybody wants to see that. I can put that into the links that we share after this, but ransomware rollback is really nice, especially for your workstations, because if something does happen, you can roll it back in a few minutes and you don't have to pay somebody else thousands of dollars to get your data back. Any questions on the ransomware recovery conversations? Okay. So what do you do if you haven't talked to us before you got the ransomware? Oh, let's see what we got in the chat here. How long will I be down? That's a great question. And I'm going to show an example of two different stories to show you what can happen. So remember I talked about that small company that had their backup attached to the server. So they were down for 4 weeks and paid me about $5,000. We had another client that was using one of our backups. They did get ransomware. We were able to recover them in 15 minutes. They had no major operational downtime, no loss of data, and it cost them no additional money. They were already paying us to support their backup. So we just logged in, activated their backup, got them up and running, and that was it. They were back up and going. So if you have the resilient backup solution, you can get back up fairly quickly. If you don't, it can take a long time, or you can never get back up. That client lost 70% of their documents. So we had to rebuild everything from scratch for them. So think about that. Yes.
Okay, Ken, another question someone asked is, can I infect my clients?
The answer is that's exactly what happened with Kaseya. They infected their clients. So the MSPs, and so the answer is yes. If you go in and you have ransomware and that ransomware is on your computer and you hook up to your client's network, it's going to try and spread out to their network. So you can massively infect other networks if you get it. And so you want to be careful. If you're out and you're a consultant and you're going into other people's offices, you can carry, it's kind of like the viruses we're facing. If you have it and you go into another office, you spread it. So you want to, so somebody asked.
That leads to a second good question, which is the whole guest Wi-Fi access. I'm assuming that should be a thing of the past.
Yeah, well, if you're going to have guest Wi-Fi at your office, it needs to be outside of your network. There are ways to do that.
Okay.
But you don't want to have guest access on your network. That's
okay.
A really
that
bad
makes sense.
habit. And then go ahead.
And someone did ask also, are we obligated to tell our clients if we've been hacked?
So I'm going to put it this way. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to tell you what your legal obligation is, but I will tell you a story that we had about 6 years ago. It was right before we implemented our multi-factor authentication. Lucy had accidentally deleted her Outlook and went to a bad website, and she ended up getting hacked. We were able to shut it down in about 5 minutes, but in 5 minutes, it sent out 4,000 emails. But we contacted every single customer, told them that we were hacked, told them what happened, and of course, cleaned it up. We were afraid that they were going to be angry at us. An IT company shouldn't be hacked. Everybody was really pleased at what we told them, how fast we responded. They were glad we had the protocols in place. So I would suggest if you are hacked, let your clients know. I think everybody understands you're going to get hacked. Every company's been hacked. That's how it's going. It's better to be transparent than to try to hide it. And your clients will be really glad you did. So that's how we handled it. We will go out, we let everybody know. We put a post up on Facebook, on our Facebook page, and said, we got this. If you get an email from us, it's not our emails. Sorry for the inconvenience. We have fixed this problem. So, obviously try and make sure you're addressing it quickly, but do tell people.
Question, are you sharing your screen?
I should be.
Oh.
Do you not see, anybody see my scene? It should have, if you're getting
Your screen
ransomware.
is fine. I think somebody's mic just turned on inadvertently.
Okay.
Oh, it was me, Rick. had a question for you, Ken.
Yes, go ahead.
So do we also have a responsibility to also report this to some organization that's keeping track of all the hacks so that everybody has the benefit of
Yes.
what's going on?
There you go. That is a wonderful segue. I think he looked at my presentation. So you should tell the FBI if you get hacked. And they've got this great website, ic3.gov, where you can submit a report. I'll tell you, one of the advantages of reaching out to the FBI is a lot of these encryption keys are available already. So you don't have to pay the ransom because they've already gotten it. What happens is most of these hackers are not sophisticated hackers. Most of these hackers buy a hacking kit off the internet. So the keys are already preset, everything's preset. You send out the emails, you have the encrypted viruses, and then you just start collecting money. But since it's all preset, a lot of these the FBI already has. So if you contact them, they might be able to give you the key that opens up your files. So make sure you contact them, let them know, and they are tracking all of that information. So if you go to ic3.gov, you can get that type of information, you can put in a report, and you can get help. So, 10-minute warning. Wow, this went fast.
Hey, Ken, real quick, somebody mentioned in the chat about a Windows feature called controlled folder access.
Control folder access? Yes.
That,
you want to use controlled access. So if you're using like Office 365, the more controlled the role, and we'll talk a little bit about this on CMMC, is least need access. So you don't want people to be able to get any further than as far as they have to get. So in a network environment, don't give people administrator rights, because if they have administrator rights, they can look at anything anywhere on the network. So keep it down to, if you're in HR, you should only be able to see the HR files. If you're in accounting, only the accounting files. And like Teams is a great environment because you can use a team to pre-build that. So you can have an accounting team, you can have a marketing team. Jumpstart does that a lot with their environment. So you want to make sure that way, if somebody does get infected, they don't get beyond their group. They don't infect everything.
Good.
That's important.
Thank you.
And again, FBI is going to tell you don't pay the ransom. But let's be honest, if you need your files, you'll do whatever you have to do to try and get it back. That's why the hospitals, they can't say, oops, oh, the patient records are gone. Sorry, that's people's lives. So try and preset yourself so you're prepared if this attack happens, so you don't have to pay, and do that by taking these steps. Okay, I'm going to start going through these a lot faster because we are running out of time. So here are some websites that you can go to. This is at Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3. And of course, you can always come visit us. We would be glad to help you. We're going to talk more in depth about passwords tomorrow. So I'm going to kind of just bounce through this really quickly, but make sure you do have complex, but not super complex passwords. I would suggest, and we actually offer LastPass, but have a password management, because one of the problems you can run into is if I have 433 passwords I have to remember between all of my clients. There's no way I can remember all of them. There's no way I can keep them all in my head. And so you start to write them down on paper. When I worked for a pharmaceutical company, I could literally walk around and flip up keyboards and get to passwords. Don't do that. So use a password management. You can have it on your phone. That way you can always get to your passwords, and it can even create passwords for you so they can't guess you by saying, oh, their son's date of birth, their daughter's date of birth, their wife's anniversary. None of that will be used. And don't share and reuse. Multi-factor authentication, I'm just going to say this about it. If you're not using it, you should be using it. What it is, it consists of at least 2 or more of these things. A what you know, which is usually the password, what you are, which is biometrics, your fingerprint, your face, your eye, something like that, or what you have. And this is what most of us have. Most of us, if you use online banking, you'll get a text when you type in your password, and you have to type in that text code. So that's multi-factor authentication. Okay, sorry about that. A bunch of chats came through. So I just want to take a quick second because I can offer 2 companies that sign up that are in Ohio. The SBDC is giving away 15 free hours of cyber consulting. So if you wanted to start a cybersecurity project, reach out to me and we can let 2 companies sign on and take advantage of this. So this is free money in many ways. So let us know. You can email me and we can set up a time. You do have to register with the SBDC, but that's a 15-minute process and it gets you 15 hours. So I feel a little bit like Geico here. 15 minutes can get you $3,800. Okay, I don't know if we have time to do the pop quiz, but I'm going to assume we do. So let me, oh shoot, didn't mean to stop sharing. Sorry about that. I'm going to pull this up quick and then we'll do the second quiz and we'll see how much you learned. So where is, now it's hiding my share. There we go. There we go. So if you want to, we're going to give it quickly. If you want to sign in to Cahoots again and put in that code. And then while that is happening, I'm going to also paste out into the chat the Survey Monkey for your chance to win $50. Oh, wait a second. I didn't send it to the right person. There, everybody should see that. Thank you, Regan. Okay. We've got 9 people on. Anybody else want to join? I'll count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, here we go. Anyone else that wants to jump on? Jump on. How much did you learn? Hope you're all excited. Okay, first question. Ransomware tries to take you to dinner, keep your data safe and sound, lock your data, steal your passwords. Yes, lock your data. Good. Joe is leading the pack. Good job, Joe. Question number 2. Who was attacked by ransomware? This is kind of a trick question because I only want the one we talked about. Colonial Pipeline, AT&T, Verizon, and Target. They've all been attacked, but only one is the one we talked about. Excellent. Oh, Shanti's now taking the lead. Why do hackers use ransomware? Bored on a Saturday night? Because it works. It's super fun. Their mommy made them. That's right, because it works. We're all in business. If there's something that pays money, we're going to do it, aren't we? Oh, Joe stepped back into the lead. Okay, what should you do to protect yourself against ransomware? Lock yourself in the bathroom, keep your lights on, keep backups connected to your computer, keep your operating system up to date. Yes, keep your operating systems up to date will help protect you from ransomware. Yep, Sumath is in second. Okay, which are 2 ransomware recovery methods? Drinking and crying, backup and ransomware rollback, sharing your password and keeping them in an unencrypted file, call the FBI and ask for an agent to stay in your office. I would like the FBI to stay in my office. I agree with the drinking and crying, whoever said that. Good job, everybody. Oh, Sumath is on fire. Look at him go. 2 more questions. Where can I go for help if I get ransomware? ic3.gov, helpme.lost, ransomware.gov, blackhat.eu. That's right, ic3.gov. Sumoth is still holding that lead by a few points. How many SBDC 15-hour cybersecurity packages are we offering? 15, none, 2, 5. Okay, that's right. We're offering 2. So any of you that are interested, please reach out to me. Okay, so we have in third place, Chris, Shanti, and then our first place winner is Joe. Good job, Joe. Okay. I did put out into the chat the survey. So if you fill it out and are willing to put your email address, we will pick a winner and give you a $50 Amazon gift card. So I'm paying you for your information. Kind of the exact opposite of a ransomware.
Good, very good. Thank you, Ken. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. And please join us again Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. We'll go to the second part of our 3-part cybersecurity sessions. So thank you very much. And we will, for those of you, we have been recording it and we will be posting this on our YouTube channel. And I apologize for the background noise. My wife is starting a webinar for her company right now. So I'm going to mute. And Ken, thank you again. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thanks. Are there any other follow-up final questions that you would like to have addressed? I know I'm so amazing. There's no questions at all, but if there was 1 or 2 that I somehow missed, please share them right now.